Hello and welcome to the Media Club podcast. Last month, we discussed our thoughts about the presidential debates. So today, we'll be discussing our thoughts on the Electoral College. And before we begin with today's topic, we are going to be introducing our speakers by mentioning our name, grade, school, and answering the question, if you could go to any state in the United States, where would you go? So I'll start off. My name is Daniel Kong. I'm a junior at Sunny Hills High School. And if I could go to any state in the United States, I would probably go to New York, just because they have a pretty skyline. So, Kyle Min, could you go next?
Hi, my name is Kyle Min. I am a junior at Los Alamitos High School, and I would like to go to Ohio because that's where my other relative lives.
Chana?
Hi, my name is Chana Park. I'm a junior at Cypress High School, and I would like to go to Washington.
Chris?
My name is Chris Choi. I'm a junior at Orange Lutheran High School, and I'll probably go to New York because I've never been to the East Coast.
Ellie?
Hi, my name is Ellie. I'm a junior at Sunny Hills High School, and I would like to go to Washington.
Erin?
Hi, my name is Erin Choi. I'm a junior at Orange Lutheran High School, and I would like to go to Hawaii.
You think Ethan?
Hi, my name is Ethan. I'm a freshman at Canyon High School, and I would like to go to Hawaii because I like beaches that aren't too cold.
Cool. Jacob?
I'm Jacob. I'm a junior at Rowan High School, and the place I would go is probably Washington.
Joyce?
Hi, I'm Joyce Ng. I'm a sophomore at Arcadia High School, and I would also like to go to Hawaii.
Kenneth?
Hi, my name is Kenneth. I'm a senior at Fairmont Preparatory Academy, and the state I would want to go to is New York.
Leanne?
Hi, my name is Leanne Cha. I'm a junior at Oxford Academy, and I would go to Florida because I like beaches.
Ryan?
Hi, I'm Ryan Lee, a junior at Sunny Hills High School, and if I could go to a state, it would be Hawaii.
Sean?
Hi, I'm Sean Sun, and I'm a sophomore at Troy High School, and if I can go to a state, I'd go to Pennsylvania.
And lastly, Victoria?
My name is Victoria, and I'm a junior at Troy, and I would like to go to New York.
So now that we have introduced all of our speakers, we'll be going into our first question. So in your own words, explain what you guys think the Electoral College is. So does anyone have any opinions on that?
In my own words, I would kind of describe the Electoral College as a voting system in the United States that gives states a certain amount of votes for the candidates depending on population per state.
Does anyone else have any thoughts?
I'd say it's basically a voting system where it's like kind of getting the most, like the average, I guess, of each state's votes, because it's shortening like a lot of people into like only 3 or a couple of votes and adding them all up, and that's pretty much the Electoral College to me.
Yeah, I personally think the Electoral College is a group of representatives per state, and in total they make around like 400 to 500, I think. And overall, those are the votes that actually go into account for the presidential election. So yeah. So our next question is, what is the difference between the popular vote and an electoral vote? So does anyone have thoughts on that?
So the popular vote is basically a vote from every single citizen of the United States who voted, like a nationwide vote. And electoral vote is each state's vote. So it's like if a certain state is like Democratic or Republican, then that state gets an entire vote basically. And then they combine, and the first and the candidate that reaches 270 votes first wins the election.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up for that. So with a show of hands, could we see who thinks the Electoral College is a good thing? So no one. Okay. So who thinks it's a bad thing then? Okay. Would anyone like to share like the reasons as to why they think it's a bad thing?
I think not a quite positive thing because it's not really considering everyone's choice. It's actually just grouping it into one and not considering everyone's individual vote.
Personally, I think it's a bit outdated because I believe that the system of the Electoral College was made when like the founding fathers decided that maybe not every person in America is educated enough to make an informed decision. They thought they would be swayed by propaganda and campaigning, but I think that's not really the case anymore, and our like rules and guidelines should evolve with the times.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I feel like when the Electoral College, like when the system was first made, yeah, the people they're kind of lacking in like knowledge. But then now, now that there's several hundreds of millions of people, but knowing that their vote doesn't directly count for the presidential election, it kind of feels undemocratic in a way. So now, our next question is: do you guys think the Electoral College is important, even though we've come to the conclusion that it's a bad thing? Do you guys still think it's an important?
I think that having like a second system besides just very purely majority votes is it should be in place, whether or not you think that should be the Electoral College. Yeah, because I feel like, especially with like coming generations, it's almost like a mob mentality or like influence is super. It's like push a lot, and then you can change a lot of opinions through social media. You know, whether that's good or bad. And I think having a second system is important.
Victoria, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I agree with Ryan. I think it's definitely important to have a second system. There may be times when like the popular vote isn't exactly like as accurate.
Okay. So we kind of talked about some benefits of the Electoral College. Does anyone else believe that there's other benefits to the Electoral College? Any thoughts on that?
So, in addition, I also see that the Electoral College could be used as a secondary system rather than being heavily relied upon, because it makes a lot of people who vote via population feel like their vote doesn't matter. But if we make it like population vote and then electoral vote, then it would probably be a lot simpler, or it would cause a lot less problems.
Hey, Kenneth, what do you think? Do you think there's like benefits to the Electoral College, or like if you don't believe in that, what are some cons that you see?
So like as like stated in the question earlier, whether like the electoral college system is a good or bad thing, I don't really think it's a good or bad thing in general. There's a lot of pros to it, and there's a lot of cons to it. So like I think my solution is just like try to update or like fix the electoral college system, in which like it does consider. So if we do focus on like the popular vote, there are ways and methods that the presidents can just focus on densely populated areas or cities in which they can gain that popular vote, and those small states will be negated, in which the electoral college balances out. And the negation is that like not everyone thinks their vote matters in that case. So I do think there are some benefits, but there are some drawbacks, and I think there needs to be a fix. But considering the benefits, I don't think it should be like terminated or anything. I think Kyle's solution is probably one of the best solutions here. So yeah.
Okay. And before we move on, I want to hear from one more person. So, Chris, would you like to share your thoughts on like the benefits or like the pros or cons of the Electoral College?
I'm honestly on the con side of Electoral College because, to take an example of the 2016 elections, as everybody know, Hillary won by 1 million votes on popular vote, I'm pretty sure. But just because she lost the electoral vote, she lost the election. And I think that 1 million people like voting for Hillary over Trump, it's a lot of people who want Hillary to become president more than Trump. But if the electoral vote just matters and Trump won, I think that the 1 million votes just is, I don't know, they just don't have enough, I don't know, power, which I don't think that makes sense in a democratic country.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you brought up. So I think that'd be a good way to transition into kind of like the negative, the con side of the Electoral College. What are like, I guess, the bad things about it? So does anyone have any thoughts on it? Is it fair, democratic, or?
I think going off of something that Chris said about power, looking back at the history of why the Electoral College was created, other than the fact of like other than like misinformation spreading or like a lack of information for like the newly created states, since they don't have as much technology as we do right now. I've read up that the Electoral College was created almost as a racist system that would empower the southern states and give them more of the power rather than the other states because of the whole fact that they were more established in the beginning than like the western states, which were newer at the time. So I don't think that it, like, even now it's not as democratic as it should be, but the fact that it wasn't based on and created upon a democratic system, a true democratic system, is something that we should take into consideration when considering whether it should still be used or not.
Yeah, I agree with that. Joyce, do you have any thoughts on the electoral college system? Do you see any downfalls, any negative effects of it?
Well, I think one thing is that originally voting, the purpose of democracy is to, to have the will of the people, but sometimes there are rogue electors. So in that case, they are not really representing the thoughts and the feelings of the people who originally voted and elected them to be on the electoral college. So I feel like sometimes it doesn't really represent what our country's opinions.
So would you suggest then getting rid of the electoral college, or what what would you think would be like a plausible solution to solve the rogue voters?
Well, I think that we shouldn't completely abolish the electoral college because it does provide some benefits, but I feel like um, it should not be considered such, like, it shouldn't have so much power. I feel like, as some people have said before, it should be more of a secondary system and it shouldn't be our first.
Okay, okay. So I think we've talked about enough about the benefits and the pros and cons of the electoral college system. So now we're going to be talking about how has the electoral college affected elections in the past. This could be whether the 2000 election, the 2016 election, or even the election that happened just a couple of weeks ago. So Sean, what are your opinions on like the electoral college and kind of like how it has like affected, I guess, the presidential elections in the past, specifically the most recent one?
Well, there are like many cases if you look back in history where the most popular vote it was way towards another president like either Hillary or Al Gore, but due to the electoral vote, you always see either Trump in the 2016 vote winning or George W. Bush in the 2000 vote winning. And even now, although I didn't look into it as much of a couple of days ago's election, I'm pretty sure that that happened as well to this election.
So what are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about like the electoral college kind of having different opinions than the actual popularity vote?
That I think that just basing off like even though they're different, just always going with the electoral college. I think the system should be changed a little bit to at least take in the popular vote a bit more because they're both doing the same thing. So I think they should both at least be able to have a say.
What about you, Ethan? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think that the majority should get the state vote, and but also take into consideration the people who have voted for the other candidates. Like, so take into consideration more of what the other, like the opposing side has to say, instead of just having popular vote for states have all the points.
So does anyone else want to add on to what Sean and Ethan said?
Actually, if I can like elaborate, I think something that Chris mentioned, like a little bit back, like Hillary winning by 1 million in terms of popular vote. I think it's kind of important to look in different perspectives because yes, 1 million is a lot, but that's 0.3% of the U.S. population. So kind of like saying, oh, only. I'm not saying like anyone said this, but then if you take into like if you only take population like popular vote into account, I feel like an argument can be made saying, oh, like like a small percentage of the population decides the course of the next 4 years. So I think it's important to kind of look at situations with in like a wider sense.
In addition, like for instance, the 2016 election, how the Electoral College favored Trump rather than Hillary, it kind of is almost like an example of that the Electoral College isn't foolproof, because although Hillary and Trump were both not exactly good candidates, Trump's behavior in 2020 was almost like a testimony to how the Electoral College isn't always foolproof, like how Trump handled the COVID-19 situation, how he was very nonchalant about it, keep asserting that the cases were lowering despite the US being at its all-time high. So it's almost ironic that this system, to prevent any mob rule choosing the wrong candidate, is ironic that this system built upon that has kind of failed.
So now we're going to be having our closing question. So ultimately, do you guys believe that the Electoral College is an efficient and effective way to represent the country's preference when choosing a president?
Ultimately, I feel like it's not the primary way to efficiently and effectively choose a president, because as stated before, there's a lot of opinions on how the popular vote is a fair representation of how many people as a population as a whole prefer which president over the other. So there's a lot of pros and cons for both methods of voting for the president and which one should be prioritized over. Bottom line, the Electoral College should be matched with the popular vote. There has to be some way, some middle ground or gray area in which the Electoral College's benefits are taken into account, as well as its cons within the system, and find a different efficient way to choose a president without compromising every person's votes in representation for a president's candidacy. So yeah.
Going off of what Kenneth said, I think that electoral college shouldn't be the major system for presidents, and I think that popular vote and both should be a little together in a sense. So they should do the popular vote first, and then if the difference between the candidates are 5% or less, they should move on to the electoral vote and continue with that. So I think there's flaws.
So does anyone else?
What I think is that the Electoral College is an efficient way, but I wouldn't say as much as effective, because efficiency-wise, it's taking a large amount of votes and just making it power like there's a million billions of people, and you're just taking it as 200 or 200, 400 to votes. That's pretty efficient, but effective-wise, I wouldn't say it's that effective, because if defining effective, it's making it work more, I guess. But if you're taking popular vote and it's different with the electoral vote, then that's not as effective as it should be, because if they're disagreeing, that's what I'd say.
Okay, so I think that's a good way to end the podcast. Thank you to everyone for speaking their opinions and thoughts about the Electoral College. And thank you for tuning in to this month's Media Club podcast. We'll see you again next month.